Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining us virtually for today's announcement. My name is Wayne Long, and I'm the proud member of Parliament for the beautiful riding of St. John Rossay in New Brunswick, which is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. This afternoon, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's announcement, the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Fighting climate change requires efforts from cities, businesses, and citizens. I am pleased to see that action is being taken here in my home city of St. John. Minister Guilbeault, over to you.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for this introduction. On this cold winter day, I am joining you from Montreal, which is in the traditional land of the Guilbeault Nation, part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Je tiens à remercier tout le monde qui se joint à nous virtuellement pour cette annonce aujourd'hui. La pandémie a certainement changé la façon dont nous pratiquons nos activités. Through all the incredible challenges brought on by COVID-19, our government has continued to be there to support families, organizations, and businesses. We will get past this pandemic, but we need to continue to build better for the future. Because climate change will still be with us when COVID-19 is long gone, and the challenges and opportunities of the low carbon energy efficiency world won't wait. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour parler des avantages réels et pratiques de rebâtir en mieux. Il est temps de s'attaquer au changement climatique, une réalité qui a déjà des effets sur notre quotidien. Le Canada peut être un chef de file dans notre transition vers une économie décarbonisée plus respectueuse de l'environnement. Une économie décarbonisée ne veut pas seulement dire moins de pollution, mais aussi d'importantes économies d'énergie pour les familles, les entreprises et les collectivités de tout le pays. We've seen in Canada firsthand the effects of climate change just a few months ago with the devastating flooding in both BC and Atlantic Canada, which took lives, washed away homes and businesses, and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. We know that the problem is carbon pollution, and we know that the whole world is in a competitive race for solutions, a race that is unlocking investment, innovation, and job creation at a pace that will explode when this pandemic is behind us. Over the last 6 years, Canada has finally succeeded in changing the trajectory of our polluting emissions. Thanks to the work of millions of Canadians, provinces, communities, Indigenous peoples, businesses, and organizations, we are now on a path to achieve the emission reduction that are urgently needed. But more needs to be done. And we know we can't do it alone. We need your help, communities across Canada, to undertake transformative projects to save you money for long-term energy costs, but also save our planet by cutting harmful greenhouse gases. That's why I'm excited to announce that the Government of Canada is launching another $200 million from the Low Carbon Economy Fund to help communities across the country. This funding is now available for projects that cut carbon pollution, that help Canadians save on energy costs, and that create good middle-class jobs in our communities. The Low Carbon Economy Fund is an important part of Canada's Strengthened Climate Plan, helping to create cleaner, healthier communities and good jobs across the country. In fact, today we're joined by some of the recipients who've received funding in the first round of the program and are doing outstanding work. That includes the City of St. John, New Brunswick, which is installing a renewable heating and cooling system at an important complex in the city, as well as to retrofit up to 50% of its municipal buildings. This project will reduce 250,000 tons of polluting emissions. The City of Peterborough in Ontario received up to $6.1 million for a centralized composting center to divert food and waste and prevent 33,000 tons of organic debris from entering landfill each year. The Kawasas First Nation in Saskatchewan in installing solar panels across 5 of its community-owned buildings, which will generate about 60% of their annual electricity needs. Je suis heureux d'annoncer que le gouvernement du Canada dégage un autre montant de 200 millions de dollars du Fonds pour une économie à faible émission de carbone pour aider les collectivités partout au pays. Ce financement est maintenant disponible pour réaliser des projets qui réduisent la pollution du carbone, aident les Canadiens à réduire leurs factures d'énergie et créent de bons emplois pour la classe moyenne dans nos communautés. Le Fonds pour une économie à faible émission de carbone est un élément important du plan climatique renforcé du Canada qui continue à créer des collectivités plus propres, plus saines, ainsi que de bons emplois partout au pays. Aujourd'hui, nous avons également avec nous des représentants du Centre de traitement de biomasse de la Montérégie, situé à Saint-Pie, au Québec, qui installe de nouveaux équipements permettant de transformer les déchets organiques et alimentaires en énergie renouvelable et en biofertilisant. Grâce à ce projet, ce centre améliore la qualité de l'air et de l'eau dans sa collectivité, réduit la pollution et enrichit les sols du secteur. Since our government first launched a low carbon economy fund, we've seen an incredible response from so many groups who have extremely innovative projects that are cutting pollution and improving energy efficiency in their communities while creating jobs and growing a healthy, sustainable economy. Every project under this program gets us closer to reaching our national target to cut polluting emissions by 40 to 45% by 2030 compared to 2005 levels. Our government is taking bold action on climate change, and thanks to communities, businesses, and individuals, Indigenous nations across the country who are joining in, we're making a real difference. Together, we can do this. Together, we can build a healthier environment and a healthy economy for today and for our kids and grandkids. Notre gouvernement continuera à soutenir les Canadiens et les Canadiennes, ainsi que les organismes communautaires pour bâtir un monde plus respectueux de l'environnement, plus sain et plus résilient pour toutes et tous. Ensemble, nous réussirons. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Guilbeault. And now I'd like to invite Chief Delorme from the Cowessess First Nation to deliver remarks. Chief Delorme, over to you.
Nanaskamun, thank you very much. Ogamau Cadmus Natisi Kasun. My name is Chief Cadmus Delorme. I'm the Chief of the Cowessess First Nation. Today, because of the Low Carbon Initiative Fund, when you come to Cowessess First Nation in southeastern Saskatchewan, you will find solar panels beside 5 community buildings. This aligns with our long-term strategic plan of being renewable energy focused to allow us to continue to be stewards of the land. And as well, it is a part of our long-term economic self-sustainability. Cowessess First Nation has been a part of the renewable energy sector since 2012. We have a purchase power agreement with SAS Power in the province of Saskatchewan, where we are already selling our energy back to the grid of Saskatchewan. So it is a business for us. We got a turbine, we got solar panels, and we got battery storage. Putting this back in the community was big for us. When our kids and our youth who are going to school on our First Nation will now see solar panels throughout our community on their way to school, they now know that being a scientist and being an engineer is a part of our future as well. On top of that, we have trained over 10 Cowessess citizens to help install this project on our First Nation. Most of these workers have now moved on to help companies in other areas of this province and even into Alberta. Cowessess First Nation has more projects on the go. We are in the final stages of a 10 megawatt project on the east side of Regina to sell back to the grid. We are in the bid of a 200 megawatt turbine. So Cowessess and renewable energy is a part of our future. Lastly, it is things like the Low Carbon Initiative Fund that makes Cowessess an equitable partner in this country. We all know that the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action number 92 is Canada's obligation to help First Nation become more equitable. And Cowessess First Nation thanks the Government of Canada for investing in Cowessess so we could be an equal player at all levels and assuring that this country is ready for our children and children yet on board. The Naskamun, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Delorme. And now I'd like to ask Councillor Gary Baldwin to deliver remarks. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you to Minister Guilbeault and the Government of Canada for your leadership working with partners such as my community the city of Peterborough, to reduce emissions and create a low carbon economy. Today's announcement of a new champion stream under the Low Carbon Economy Fund is an exciting opportunity for communities to take action on climate change based on the needs of their communities. In Peterborough, we've been trying to grow our household organic waste collection and composting program from a very successful pilot project into a much needed citywide service. The cost of equipment and a centralized composting facility is substantial, especially for smaller communities such as Peterborough. The Government of Canada is helping to make it possible thanks to its up to $6.1 million contribution from the Low Carbon Economy Fund that was announced in February of 2020 towards Peterborough's $15.3 million project. We are well along in our plan to begin citywide organic waste collection and composting programs for the fall of 2023. The environmental benefits will be considerable. We know the organic material makes up 40% of residential waste in Canada. Through diverting organic material from our landfill to a composting facility, we expect that greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced by about 2,000 tons of carbon dioxide in 2030, and by a total of almost 80,000 tons between 2023 and 2050. Peterborough has selected an engineered composting system that uses an aerobic process to minimize methane gas production and reduce odor-related organic waste. We will be bringing the material into a controlled space with aeration fans, temperature monitoring, and a system to cover the material and capture water runoff. As part of the project, we are planning to give each home in Peterborough a special green bin collection container, along with a smaller container for kitchens to assist residents capture and divert the targeted food waste from landfill. Diverting this food material has the potential to increase our overall diversion from landfill by up to 20%. The organic waste collection and composting program will reduce the creation of greenhouse gases from our landfill and create nutrient-rich material that can be used in soil. Creating this citywide service is a major component of Peterborough's climate change action plan to reduce greenhouse emissions by 45% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. The opening of applications for the new champion stream of Low Carbon Economy Fund is an exciting opportunity for climate change action. Based on our experience in Peterborough, I encourage communities to partner with the Government of Canada to move climate change projects forward. On behalf of the City of Peterborough and our Mayor Diane Therrien, thank you very much to the Government of Canada for your leadership on climate change action and transitioning to a low carbon economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. And now I'd like to ask Monsieur Benoit Perret to deliver remarks. Over to you, Monsieur Perret.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Ça me fait plaisir aujourd'hui de vous parler de notre projet au centre de traitement de la biomasse La Montérégie. Donc, le CTBM, c'est une usine de traitement des eaux usées à très forte charge. L'usine est en opération depuis environ 18 ans. Donc, on traite dans notre usine actuellement près de 75 000 tonnes de matières organiques qui proviennent principalement de l'industrie agroalimentaire. Donc, à l'usine, on reçoit des matières, que ce soit des alcools dégradés, des sous-produits laitiers, des bouts de canneberge. Alors, cette matière-là est dégradée dans un procédé qu'on dit aérobique. Donc, c'est un digesteur qui utilise de l'air avec des bactéries pour dégrader la matière. Donc, on s'est demandé comment on pouvait optimiser le procédé parce que les matières qu'on reçoit ont un fort potentiel agronomique et énergétique. Donc, on a décidé de construire une usine qu'on appelle une bio-raffinerie verte intégrée. Donc, à l'aide grâce à une subvention généreuse du gouvernement fédéral, une aide de 3 millions de dollars, ça nous a permis de consolider notre modèle économique pour construire cette raffinerie-là. Donc, ça consiste en deux technologies principales, une de biométhanisation et l'autre de fabrication d'engrais biologiques certifiés par compostage. La biométhanisation, ça consiste en quoi? Mais c'est comme un gros instrument industriel. Donc, on dégrade la matière. Donc, les matières qu'on reçoit contiennent des sucres, des alcools, des protéines, des graisses. Donc, c'est des longues chaînes de carbone qu'on va séparer en plus petites molécules grâce à des micro-organismes en l'absence d'oxygène. Dans le processus de transformation, qui prend environ une dizaine de jours, à la fin, une fois que la matière est transformée, on récupère deux produits importants, un biogaz et une fraction solide qu'on appelle un digestat. Donc, le biogaz, lui, contient des contaminants qu'on doit épurer. Donc, une fois que le biogaz est épuré, on obtient un gaz naturel renouvelable. Donc, à terme, on va produire près de 4 millions de mètres cubes de gaz naturel renouvelable qui va servir à remplacer les combustibles fossiles. Donc, les combustibles fossiles, comme on le sait, sont polluants. Donc, ça va permettre de réduire près de 12 000 tonnes par année en substituant les combustibles fossiles. Dans la biométhanisation, on produit également une fraction qui est solide, qu'on appelle un digestat brut. Donc, le digestat, lui, doit être séparé. Donc, on sépare le liquide du solide par une centrifugeuse et on l'introduit dans un système de compostage. Donc, pour composter, on va introduire du carbone, donc des grains de café avec des matières structurantes comme des criblures de céréales pour composter la matière, pour l'hygiéniser, pour l'amener une valeur agronomique, exemple de pathogène. Donc, une fois que la matière est compostée, on va la sécher pour la vendre comme engrais certifié par l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments. Donc, on prévoit en produire près de 11 000 tonnes par année une fois que le produit va être mis en place. L'avantage des engrais biologiques, c'est que ces matières-là, contrairement aux engrais chimiques qui sont produits avec une grande quantité d'énergie, les engrais biologiques, quand ils sont épandus au sol, mais les racines vont assimiler plus tranquillement les nutriments, ce qui fait en sorte qu'une fois que la plante l'assimile, il y aura moins de rejet dans l'environnement de matières polluantes. Donc, je termine en voulant remercier le ministre Guilbeault et son équipe pour l'aide financière qui a été accordée au CTBN. Ça nous a permis de solidifier notre modèle financier et nous permettre éventuellement de développer d'autres projets comme le CTBN à la grandeur du Canada. On a déjà 2 projets au Québec en cours de réalisation par une filiale qu'on appelle Carbonex qui offre des services de génie conseil en biométhanisation et compostage. Donc, on veut faire profiter d'autres joueurs potentiels de notre expertise qu'on a accumulée depuis les 18 dernières années. Donc, je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Perret. And now I'd like to ask Mayor Donna Reardon, for the Mayor of St. John, from my beautiful riding in St. John Rosse, to say a few words. Your Worship, over to you.
Thank you, MP Long, for your introduction and your great work in Ottawa representing us over the last 2 years. And thank you also, Minister Guilbeault, for inviting me today to speak about the highlights and the innovative work that our team in St. John is undertaking to fight climate change. It's my distinct pleasure today to talk about our deep commitment to comprehensive climate action. As a coastal city, St. John is acutely aware of the effects of climate change, especially rising sea levels, flooding, and unpredictable weather. Last week in St. John, we had a snowstorm, which began with snow, switched over to rain, and that's not unusual here because we do have the Bay of Fundy, which tempers and moderates our climate. But within 30 minutes later on the evening, it went from rain to a deep freeze. And it, of course, everything froze up here. So climate change is real to us. We are really feeling the impacts of it. It had a lot of issues with flooding. So one of the projects that we're working on is the St. John District Energy Systems Project. It's funded through the Low Carbon Economy Fund, and it's an important part of our commitment to net zero emissions by 2050 and our commitment to environmental stewardship. The Low Carbon Economy Fund has been integral to this project being realized. Once the first phase is complete, several buildings in our uptown core will have their heating and cooling needs run through this system. This investment has already seen 256 tons of CO2 eliminated from the atmosphere and $84,000 in energy savings. Over the next 2 years, this project will remove another 700 tons of CO2. The LCEF is also funding our municipal buildings deep energy retrofit project. So since 2019, that project has led to energy audits of more than 80% of the city's building portfolio, more than 1 million in infrastructure investments, and 645 tons of CO2 eliminated from the atmosphere. So these are two of the many fronts that St. John is implementing to advance the City of St. John's Climate Action Plan. It's through partnerships with the federal and provincial governments that we can deliver big city thinking. And I have to thank you today for enabling us with this whole project. So projects like this happen through the hard work and dedication of our staff. And today, particularly, I want to highlight the work of Samir Yamin. He's our go-to person when it comes to the energy management of our assets. So his work on the St. John District Energy System and the municipal buildings deep energy retrofit and countless other projects is vitally important to our city. So I want to end today by saying that the steps that St. John has taken so far with the District Energy System project are only a small piece of the overall solution. We want to further expand the district energy system in our central core using other energy sources like waste energy from industry and utilities. For me, I find the recuperation or recovery of energy a fascinating frontier, and I am really looking forward to the evolution of that. I hope that people watching today will be inspired to engage with their local governments towards climate action plans. Tell them about the projects you've heard about today and encourage them to implement similar initiatives. We've heard 3 wonderful, amazing projects so far. And I've got a few ideas to bring back to my own team. So it's been a pleasure to be here today. Thank you and merci.
Thank you, Mayor Reardon. I can look out my window actually and see the Bay of Fundy and the harbor of St. John and see that amazing project really develop before our eyes. Certainly on behalf of myself and my constituents of St. John Ross, I want to thank all of the speakers, and I want to thank everybody that tuned in, Facebook Live audience, for watching. And this concludes the event on Facebook. Now, I'd also like to ask all speakers to remain online for media availability. Thank you very much to everybody and have a great day.
All right, good afternoon once again. So we will now take questions from the media. As some of you have already done, please use the hand raising function to pose your question if you're connected via Zoom. If you're connected via telephone, to raise your hand for a question, please press *9. And prior to asking your question, this is for both groups, please state your name and media outlet. And we ask that you keep it to 1 question and 1 follow-up. Nous allons maintenant débuter la période de questions avec les médias. Veuillez utiliser la fonction main levée si vous avez une question et nous vous demandons de vous identifier, de vous nommer et identifier votre média. Et finalement, nous vous demandons de vous tenir à une question et à une relance. Les contrôles suivants peuvent être entrés via les touches du clavier de votre téléphone si vous êtes au téléphone. Donc, étoile 6 pour couper, rétablir le son et étoile 9 pour lever la main. Our first question comes to us from David Thurton. David, please identify your media outlet and go ahead.
Hi, yes, David Thurton from CBC News. My question is for Minister Guilbeault. You've concluded your consultations on your climate plan. I believe it's your emissions reduction plan. You could correct me there. I'm just curious, Minister, what are the next steps that you're going to be taking now that you've concluded consultations?
Thank you for the question, David. Actually, I should specify that we've concluded part of the consultation. So the public consultations have concluded, but we still have ongoing discussions with provinces, territories, Indigenous representatives as well to finalize the emission reduction plan, which will, and then Environment Canada, in collaboration with other ministries, will work on finalizing this plan. and tabling it at the end of March.
So you said at the end of March you're going to plan on tabling it. You have until March 29th. Are you going to wait until then? Do you suspect that it could possibly be tabled earlier? And I would also just wonder if you'd respond to the Green Party saying, the federal Green Party saying that, the public consultations weren't sufficient enough on other issues. They gave the example that the government sent out flyers of mailings to every Canadian. And that's something that could have been done on something so important as climate change. So I'm just wondering if you'd answer those two questions. Is the potential that your plan could be tabled a bit earlier than March? And how would you respond to the Green Party's criticism about how consultations are taking?
So we will. I have a legislative obligation to table it by the end of March, roughly. So I don't have a date specifically for you. I mean, it should be pointed out that this is the first time we do this exercise in Canada. It's not the last. As you know, our carbon neutrality bill that was adopted last year mandate that we table those plans every 5 years. But it is the first time we do this exercise, and we're doing it in a very short amount of time for legislative reason. In terms of the consultation, listen, David, I mean, you can never win on consultations. So I've heard from certain parties, oh my goodness, yet again, another consultation on climate change. Will we ever see the end of it? I was surprised, if not shocked, to hear from the Green Party that they wanted more consultation on climate change. I would have thought that of all the organizations out there, the Green Party would be the first one, or one of the first ones to say, let's get on with implementation. We need to get this stuff done. We need more projects like the ones we've heard from today. Canadians have been consulted since 2016 on an ongoing basis on climate change. So we decided to extend the consultation by a few weeks in order to give people more time. But again, on consultation, you can never win. It's either too much, or according to some groups, or not enough according to others.
From James Munson. And if I could ask you, James, to please identify who the question is for upon asking it. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks very much. James Munson with Bloomberg Environment. My question is for Minister Guilbeault. Minister, I've spoken with car manufacturing or groups representing car manufacturers, power companies, and they've described some of the targets that are in these sort of the pillars of the emissions reduction plan as challenging, as aggressive, and certainly the oil and gas industry has made clear they want to at least protect their sort of existing levels of production. I'm wondering if you could respond to that industries that are worried about the costs and the technical issues around the goals that you set, and some of the statements around the issues, prices for consumers will go up due to some of these plans.
Thank you for your question. I would agree with them. What we're trying to do in Canada and around the world when it comes to tackling climate change is aggressive and challenging. And certainly, as the fourth largest producer of oil and gas in the world, it is very challenging for Canada to do that. That being said, it is necessary. The cost of climate change, we are seeing the impacts of climate change. We are seeing the cost of climate change go up year after year in Canada, as we are seeing them go up all around the world. And those challenges that we are posing for ourselves and for our industries, let's take the example of vehicles, for example. Our target of having 50% of new vehicle sales be zero emission vehicles by 2030 just so happened to be the same target of our neighbor down south. The United States of America and the Biden administration have the same target. A number of countries around the world have those targets as well. Decarbonizing our electricity grid. Actually, Canada is ahead of many countries. What we're proposing, being net zero by 2035, is aggressive, but it can be done, and we've already started decarbonizing our electricity grid by mandating the elimination of coal use in the electricity sector by 2030, and we are seeing this phase out happening, certainly in many provinces, including Ontario, which has totally phased out its coal electricity production. So yes, it is challenging, and we are trying to do this in a manner that ensures we have a good mix of carrot and stick. So we are putting in place ambitious regulations or legislation, but at the same time, we're putting in place measures, programs to help industry transition to this low carbon future. Methane, for example, when we put in place our methane regs a little over a year ago, we accompanied those by a program to help companies, a $750 million program to help companies adjust to these new regulations. And that's how we will continue moving forward, being aggressive on regulation, on the regulation and legislative side, but also helping companies, sectors, and regions of the country decarbonize.
Thanks very much. And I'm glad you mentioned the US. You mentioned how having similar targets to US industries or whatever the US federal government is targeting is important for part of the question of what the impact in Canada's economic competitiveness will be. I'm wondering, your predecessor, Minister Wilkinson, worked with his U.S. counterparts on the high-level ministerial dialogue. I'm wondering, how much are you coordinating or speaking to, or remaining informed on the American plans, and how much does moving in tandem with the U.S. matter for the emissions reductions plan as a whole?
We have a great collaboration with the U.S. administration. I have a great relationship personally with Special Climate Change Special Envoy Kerry. In fact, we were on a call this morning together, virtual call with 20 so of our peers from around the world as part of the Major Economies Forum. We have ongoing conversation with the Biden administration on climate change. I have, and my government has on a number of occasions saluted the leadership of the Biden administration on climate change, the methane pledge going into the Glasgow conference, President Biden summit, Earth Summit last year in April. I'm of the opinion that without this U.S. leadership, the success that we've seen in Glasgow would not have been possible. Now, we all must do more going forward. That certainly applies to Canada. It applies to all of the major emitters and major economies around the world, and that's exactly what the conversations this morning were about.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question comes from Alex Villeneuve. Once again, please identify your media outlet and to whom your question is addressed to.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez? Oui, ma question est pour M. Guilbeault. Quelle devrait être je suis Alex Villeneuve de Radio-Canada Nouveau-Brunswick. Quelle devrait être la place du nucléaire et des petits réacteurs modulaires dans la stratégie fédérale pour le climat? En d'autres termes, M. Guilbeault, j'aimerais savoir si est-ce que vous êtes personnellement à l'aise avec les ambitions nucléaires des provinces, dont le Nouveau-Brunswick, qui veulent construire de nouveaux petits réacteurs modulaires?
Merci pour la question. D'abord, vous comprendrez que je ne suis pas ici en tant que Stephen Guilbeault, le citoyen canadien, mais je suis ici en tant que ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique. Et la position de notre gouvernement sur le nucléaire, mon collègue, le ministre Wilkinson, et moi l'avons réitéré à plusieurs reprises, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut regarder toutes les sources de production d'électricité qui sont non émettrices. Après ça, ces technologies-là devront compétitionner sur le marché et ce seront les meilleures technologies qui vont se tailler une place dans le portefeuille énergétique du futur, que ce soit au niveau du Canada ou de la planète.
Merci. Donc, j'en comprends que vous êtes à l'aise avec les positions de la province. Donc, si vous n'êtes pas à l'aise, vous pouvez le préciser dans la relance, parce que vous avez été un militant de longue date contre le nucléaire. Vous l'avez été sur toutes les tribunes pendant de nombreuses années. Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, vous mettez de côté vos positions que vous avez eues en tant que militant pour l'environnement sur ce sujet-là?
Je vais répéter ce que je vous ai dit. La position de notre gouvernement, c'est qu'il faut regarder l'ensemble des technologies qui sont non émettrices. Mais une fois qu'on a dit ça, il va falloir que ces technologies-là puissent performer au niveau du marché. Or, on le voit présentement à l'échelle, que ce soit au niveau canadien ou à l'échelle internationale. Prenons l'exemple de l'éolien, du solaire, qui connaissent des taux de croissance faramineux ici et ailleurs. On pourrait prendre l'exemple de l'Alberta présentement, où on investit, où il s'investit, en fait, c'est le secteur privé. Ce n'est pas les gouvernements qui investissent ça, mais c'est le secteur privé qui investit plusieurs centaines de millions de dollars par année dans le développement, le déploiement d'énergie telle le solaire et l'éolien. Mais si le nucléaire est capable de se tailler une place dans ce marché-là très compétitif et où l'électricité produite l'est à un très faible coût, on parle dans bien des cas de moins de 3 sous le kilowattheure, elle pourra se faire une place. Mais l'idée que le gouvernement doit subventionner la production d'électricité, c'est pas, on ne le fait pas pour le solaire, on ne le fait pas pour l'éolien non plus. C'est le marché qui décide de ça.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. La prochaine question, et ce sera la dernière question, nous provient de Jacques Poitras de CBC. Our final question comes to us from Jacques Poitras, CBC. Please indicate who your question is for. Veuillez s'il vous plaît indiquer à qui la question sera posée.
Good afternoon. The question is for Minister Guilbeault, Jacques Poitras from CBC in New Brunswick. I want to ask you about the new standards for carbon pricing taking effect next year that will not allow the provinces to offset increases with cuts to provincial gas taxes, for example. As you probably know, New Brunswick did precisely that 2 years ago with a cut to its provincial gas tax. Will the new standards require New Brunswick to go back and retroactively remove that cut and raise its carbon price to eliminate that offset?
So I think there's two parts to your question. The first one is that in order for Canada to be able to achieve its ambitious target for 2030, we need all hands on deck. We need provinces, territories, our communities, Indigenous organizations to do their part and to do their fair share. And we need certainly carbon pricing is recognized by most experts around the world as one of the key measures in helping to fight climate change. And we need to ensure that the rules are the same across the board in Canada. We can't have provinces that have their own system that are not equivalent to what's the federal equivalent, and we can't have provinces on the one hand increase their carbon pricing system while at the same time offering a fossil fuel subsidy, which is what you're talking about. As we are in the process of phasing out federal fossil fuel subsidies, we need the entire country to phase out the fossil fuel subsidies. We can't hope to fight climate change while continuing to financially encourage the consumption or the production of fossil fuel. It simply doesn't make any sense. So we are in the process of talking with provinces to ensure that their system, those who have decided to adopt their own system as opposed to use the federal system, that these systems are equivalent to what's in place at the national level and are keeping up with the increase in price, which, as you know, will continue going up past 2022. The price has been increasing by $10 a year for the past 4 years. It's going to start increasing as of 2023 by $15 a year. So we need to ensure that all provinces are doing their fair share.
Okay, I understand that. But if the 2020 4-cent gas tax cut in New Brunswick is not reversed, New Brunswick will always be 4 cents less than other provinces and will not be equivalent. So will you require New Brunswick to go back and retroactively get rid of that 4-cent gas tax cut from 2 years ago as part of the standard?
Conversations are ongoing with provinces in terms of ensuring that that their systems are equivalent, and that by their system we don't mean simply carbon pricing, but certainly that's a big part of it, and we need to ensure that there's consistency across the board.
Thank you. For those reporters who had questions for the minister, but we weren't able to get to, if you could please follow up with the ECCC Media Relations and the Minister's Press Secretary, that'd be great. Donc, pour les journalistes qui avaient des questions, mais qui ne pourront pas arriver à vos questions, s'il vous plaît, faire des suivis avec l'équipe des relations avec les médias de CCC et puis le secrétaire de presse du ministre. And this concludes today's question period with reporters. Thank you and have a great day. C'est ce qui conclut la période de questions avec les représentants des médias. Merci beaucoup et bonne fin de journée.
Thank you everyone. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.